Hey everyone and welcome to my channel. So today I thought I would film a video basically telling you guys about all of Netflix's hidden gems, and I have found a few, let me tell you. I think most people will agree where they feel like they've watched everything that has hype around it, and then they don't really know what else to watch. And I feel like I have found a good few TV programs that are really good that I never hear anyone talk about. And I apologise if some of these shows you have watched and have heard about, but I'm just coming from personal experience, friends I know, even on Twitter, these shows that I'm going to talk about are never mentioned, and some of them are really good. I split the video up into talking about things like dramas. I have some that are kind of more sci-fi based, I have some comedies, I have some kind of psychological horror type programs, and then I have things like documentaries and reality TV. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a timestamp down below of when I'm going to talk about each of these different things, so if you only want to look for certain hidden gems you can do that. So I'm going to start off with dramas. I think it's quite a general place to start, and I'm just going to jump right in. The first drama that I'm going to talk about is Pose. I loved Pose and I rarely hear anyone talk about it. So it is a show about the kind of ball culture in New York, and it's set in the 80s to 90s, and it covers things like HIV and being in the LGBT community as a black person. It covers a whole range of things. It also covers things like coming out, and it's kind of like a drama where they have all their separate houses that they're in, and then they compete in these balls, and it is really good. And Evan Peters also stars in this, and I really like Evan Peters. It's made by Ryan Murphy, and I love most shows that he makes, so if you haven't watched this I would really recommend it. It's really good. I believe there are 2 seasons but only 1 on Netflix, so I'm waiting for the second season to come out. Next 2 things I'm going to talk about aren't maybe totally hidden gems, but I never really hear people talk about them. So the first one is Glow. It's set in LA in the 80s. It's about a women's wrestling club, and they basically do all these shows, all this wrestling type things, and then it really covers a lot of things about friendship and being female and feminism. A light-hearted show to watch as well. I really enjoyed it. It's also quite funny. It definitely does have some serious points, but it is like a drama on the verge of a comedy, I would say. Quite a light-hearted, easy watch, and I really enjoyed it. Another show that if you have not watched you have to watch is Atypical. Again, this is a more easy watch. It is about a boy who is on the autistic spectrum, and it basically follows his journey through navigating high school. It also follows his friends' journeys, his family's journey, so it isn't just solely following his journey, and it is really nice and heartwarming and a really easy watch. And I think it does a really good job in portraying autism in a sensitive way. The next 2 dramas that I'm going to talk about are actually UK dramas. So the first one is Wanderlust. Now this is a bit different to the kind of things that I would usually watch. It basically follows this couple who they've got married, grown up, had kids, and it basically ends up that they cheat on each other, and they end up revealing that they've cheated on each other, and it ends up that they continue cheating on each other but they know about it, and they try and do this to kind of re-spark their romance. It kind of just deals with what it's like to grow old in a married couple and the struggles that people may face. It does deal with it in a kind of light-hearted way. It's definitely not a super difficult watch, but it also can be quite emotional, and I didn't really think I'd like this, but I found with it I could really feel what the characters were going through, even though I've never gone through that myself. The actors did a really good job in portraying what it would be like. The next British drama, which could also be classed as a comedy I suppose, but I didn't put it in the comedy section because I think it also is a drama, is Lovesick. Now this is a major hidden gem. I never hear anyone talk about this show, and it's so good. It basically is about this guy who ends up getting chlamydia, and he obviously has to go and contact everyone that he's slept with and tell them. Each new episode has a new name and the story of kind of why he slept with them, and then him having to tell them. But then it also follows, there's him, his friend, and his other female friend. They live in a house together, so it follows their story all throughout, but then each new episode kind of deals with each new girl, and then there ends up being different dynamics between who he lives with, which I won't spoil, but it kind of sounds a bit wacky, but it honestly was really, really, really funny, and I would definitely recommend watching this because, like I said, I never hear anyone talk about this, and it's so funny. It kind of gives me Skins vibes, if you've watched Skins, which is another one of my favourites, but I can't put it in this video because it's definitely not a hidden gem. But the music in it, the soundtrack is really good, and the vibes of it definitely reminds me of Skins. I'm still sticking with drama. I'm going to move on. Now the next programme is actually The Killing. Now I believe this is was made quite a few years ago, and I watched it quite a few years ago, but I remember watching it and really, really enjoying it. Especially the first murder which they investigate. Basically it's two detectives, and I think what makes the show so great is the dynamic between the two detectives. There's an older woman and then a younger guy, and the dynamic between them is quite funny and comedic at times, but then they also have to deal with really serious situations. For example, the first season deals with a girl that went missing. It is just a murder mystery program. There are loads of them out there, but I think the dynamic between the duo in this makes the show, and it was a really, really, really good watch. So the next program is Bloodline. This is again a US show that I actually watched a few years ago now, so my memory on it is quite rusty, but I remember really, really enjoying it. It basically follows this family that from the outside looks like a perfect family, but then you kind of delve deeper and uncover lots of like family secrets and things that have gone on in the past. I won't lie, this was quite a slow burner. It took me quite a few episodes to feel like I was hooked and really, really get into it, but once you're into it, like every new episode is like, oh my god, I didn't see that coming. So if you are going to watch this, it is a slow burner, but persevere with it because it ended up being like an amazing, amazing show. Now I'm going to move on to more kind of sci-fi, fantasy, horror-esque shows. I'm putting this all in one big bundle because I don't watch that many shows that are like this, especially not hidden gems. If I'm going to watch something that's sci-fi, I watch something that's hyped about because I'm not a huge lover of sci-fi anyway, but I have found some hidden gems. So the first hidden gem is Sense8. Oh my god, this is an amazing show. I would probably put it up there with the top 5 shows I've ever watched, and I rarely ever hear anyone speak about it. It's so good. So basically what it's about is it's 8 people all over the world. There's someone in London, there's a couple of people in America, someone in Africa, someone in Germany, someone in India. I forget where they all are, but they're basically all over the world, and that for a start makes it an amazing show because it is actually shot all over the world. I believe that's why they cancelled it after 2 seasons, because it was too expensive to make. But if you're really into kind of the making and the aesthetic of shows, the shots are really, really beautiful. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So yeah, there's 8 people all over the world, and they're essentially connected. They can listen to each other's thoughts, they can feel how each other are feeling, and it kind of uncovers them realizing that they're all connected to each other, and they can kind of telepathically zone to be on the other side of the world with this other person and then just zone back. It sounds kind of wacky. I don't really know how to give this show justice in my explanation for it, but honestly, like, if someone had explained it to me, I'd be like, that's not for me, but give it a chance. It covers everything from LGBT stuff to love to family, friendships, covers loads of stuff. And basically it turns out that there is an organisation that's actually hunting these people down, so they have to try and escape from this organisation using each other's powers. Because for example, one of them is, oh yeah, that reminds me, there is another one from South Korea, and she is really good at kind of karate and martial arts, so she has to telepathically go into someone else's body to fight off someone they're fighting, even though she's in South Korea. It sounds really crazy, but trust me, it's really, really good, so I definitely recommend watching Sense8. The next show I'm going to talk about is The OA. I have heard a few people talk about this, but I just don't think it gets the hype that it deserves. It's really, really good. So basically what happens is this girl has been missing for 7 years. She was blind when she went missing, and now she's come back and she's not blind. Season 1 goes on. It uncovers why she has been missing for 7 years and what has happened to her. And I'm not gonna go into this too much because I will end up giving loads away, but she went through some nasty stuff. some mind-blowing stuff when she was away for 7 years, and it is a really interesting watch. It's very kind of weird, but I quite like things that are weird and will maybe mess with my head ever so slightly, and again covers things like love and friendship in a really raw way. I did find myself crying at this quite a lot. If you have not watched the OA, I would definitely recommend watching it. Next show is one that I watched maybe about 5 to 7 years ago. I did check, it is still on Netflix, and again, no one talks about it. So this show is Hemlock Grove. Now my memory is quite faded on what this was about, but I remember really enjoying it. Essentially, they live in kind of a fantasy town. It might be Pennsylvania, I think. It is definitely kind of fantasy horror based, and there's this string of murders that they're trying to investigate. Essentially, the people in this are monsters, and they're different kind of monsters, but they can also hide that they are monsters. It's kind of almost reminds me of a teen drama that is kind of horror essence. It gives me kind of Teen Wolf vibe. It's a really good watch, so if you're bored and you want something that's going to kind of be quite gripping and where you keep thinking, oh, I wonder what happened there, then I would really recommend Hemlock Grove. Okay, now I'm going to move on to comedies. I love watching comedies. Like, I have to be in a very certain mood to watch something that's going to mess with my head, so quite often I will choose a comedy because you just stick it on, it makes you feel good, makes you laugh. And to be honest, I find that Netflix's selection of comedies is actually quite poor, especially for UK based comedies, and they are my favourite. I do have one US comedy in here, but to be honest, I just prefer UK humour. That's just my preference. But I have managed to find some hidden gems on Netflix in terms of comedies, so let's get into it. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to talk about is Fresh Meat. Now this is a really funny programme. I started watching it like 5 years ago and then didn't watch it again, and I recently picked it back up, and it's so funny. It basically follows this group of people who didn't manage to get into halls for university, and they end up being put in this house. So none of them know each other. It's got Jack Whitehall in it and Joe Thomas from The Inbetweeners. They're just this group of people that you would never imagine being put together. Just the dynamics of them all and them kind of getting through uni. It covers a lot of things, but it honestly is hilarious. So funny. Would recommend. A really nice, light and easy watch. The next one is People Just Do Nothing. Now this honestly had me in tears of laughter. It's basically a mockumentary that follows a pirate radio station that is in West London, and it's this group of guys that run this pirate radio station. It kind of just takes the piss out of British culture and the way we are, and as a British person watching it, you can like relate to the things that they take the piss out of, and it's just really hilarious. This like honestly will have you cry laughing. If you're watching this and you're not British, you might find it harder to understand on a cultural level, but so funny. Just so funny, so well made. You really feel like you are watching a documentary and you have to remind yourself that this isn't real. So yeah, I would really recommend watching that. The next comedy on Netflix that I have not heard many people talking about, this is also on 4OD, as well as a lot of these things. Some of them kind of originate maybe in BBC or Channel 4, but they are all on Netflix. So anyway, the next one is White Gold. This one I was unsure whether or not to put in here. I did like it, but I didn't love it, but I think it's good enough to deserve a place in this video. It basically is set in the 80s in England, and it follows a window sales team, and again different dynamics, different personalities, and they're just trying to sell windows to people. An awful boss who they're trying to put up with, and it stars some pretty big names. It's got Ed Westwick. Is that even how you say his name? I'm not sure because I didn't watch Gossip Girl. Don't hate me, I just don't like programmes like that. It's got Joe Thomas in it, again from The Inbetweeners, and it's got James Buckley, who as well is from The Inbetweeners. So it's got some big names, and the personality of the guys from The Inbetweeners actually matches what they're like in The Inbetweeners. So if you miss The Inbetweeners and you liked Simon and Jay, who are in this, then watch it, because you basically get more of their personality. Obviously changed a little bit, but it's still in there, and it is just, it's quite funny. It's not amazing, but it's funny. So my next comedy is an American comedy. Now, as I've said, I'm not a huge fan of US comedy. It's just not my thing. It doesn't make me laugh, but this show was actually quite funny, and the show is Living With Yourself. It follows this guy who has a really boring life. He's just kind of bored, nothing really excites him, and he's quite miserable, to be honest. And he basically goes to this spa where it's basically just advertised as being a really good spa. You'll come out and you'll feel amazing and like a new person. And I don't know how to explain this without giving away what happens, but it's a lot more than just a spa that would give you a massage and all these kind of things. And it ends up that he comes back as literally a changed person. I really don't want to give it totally away, but it is so funny because his wife doesn't really know that he's done this, and he comes back and is like transformed, and then there's a lot of drama around what actually went down in that spa, and then him having to navigate this new life. So it's definitely a bit weird. It is unlike anything I have ever watched before. So if you're bored of watching programs that are kind of the same, I would really recommend this because it is quite funny and it is just quite an easy watch. So next I'm going to move on to documentaries. Now I'm going to start off with two documentaries that technically aren't series, they are kind of film-esque. I thought I would just include them because they are really good. So the first one is The Dawn Wall. Now this was originally on Channel 4 and it did get a lot of hype when it was on Channel 4, however with it being on Netflix, I haven't really heard people mention that it is on Netflix. It's essentially about this guy who is I can't think of the word, is it like a free climber? Basically people that like climb rock faces with literally zero equipment, nothing, no safety precautions, they just climb a massive wall with nothing. It's terrifying. For someone who is absolutely petrified of heights, watching this guy do this with nothing was insane. Yeah, he climbs it and they film it, and they also film him preparing to climb it, having to sleep on this wall, so having to pitch up like a tent type thing. I feel like when I say wall, people are going to think like a wall of a house, but this is terrifying. Something just to watch in the evening that is going to kind of glue your eyes to the screen and probably scare you a little bit, then I would definitely recommend watching this. Next I'm going to talk about Three Identical Strangers. Again, this is almost like the length of a film. It's really interesting, and as well was on Channel 4 originally, but I haven't really heard many people talk about it since it's been on Netflix. So essentially it is what it says in the title, Three Identical Strangers. It's about these three guys who were all adopted from birth. I can't even remember what happens. And one guy ends up going to a college that an identical stranger had gone to, and everyone was calling him by a different name and welcoming him, and he thought this is really weird. And he basically ended up finding out that he had a twin that he did not know about. So then these two guys end up going in a newspaper and saying, oh my god, we're twins and we did not know this our whole lives. And then the third guy turns up. So they're all triplets and they did not know about each other. And then as it goes on, it's actually quite dark. If you're someone that studied psychology as well, it covers things that I've covered in psychology, but I'm not gonna say now because it will give it away. But it is a lot more deeper and a bit more dark than literally just three triplets that didn't know each other and then find each other. So I definitely recommend watching that. So next I have two kind of crime-based series. The first one is The Staircase. This is basically about, I believe it's a writer from America whose wife falls down the stairs. But when the police come and investigate the crime scene, a lot of people kind of theorise that she could not have fell and had the amount of impact that there was. A lot of specialists believe that she was actually pushed down the stairs. So it is this huge kind of uncovering of what actually happened. Was she pushed? Did she fall? It's quite a good crime watch, so if you like crime things, I definitely recommend this. The next show that I'm going to talk about is Evil Genius. Now this is a must watch. If you like crime things, you have to watch this because The Staircase is kind of more, okay, I can kind of believe that that would happen, but Evil Genius is like mind-blowing. You would not believe what went on in this show. It's so creepy. Basically, it's about a guy who had a bomb strapped to his neck and was essentially sent on a scavenger hunt, and he robbed a bank and then was out in the middle of the street with this bomb on his neck trying to say what had happened to him, but then before anything could be done about it, he essentially blows up in the street. It is quite disturbing, I'm not gonna lie, and if you get easily scared or upset, this probably isn't for you, but if you like crime things, I'd really recommend it because it basically just uncovers what on earth happened for a guy to be out in the street and to blow up, and it is very, very interesting. The next documentary is a little bit more lighthearted. I mean, some of the episodes are, but basically Netflix has got a section called Explained. I do think a lot of people know about this, so I don't know how much of a hidden gem it is, but I don't think people realise that they've done lots of different series. For example, they did a series on the mind, which for someone who studies psychology was really, really interesting. Basically covers all the things that I have covered in my degree, but to just watch it in a program was super cool. It covered things like anxiety, mindfulness, psychedelics. It was very, very interesting. They also did one about sex, which was quite interesting. They covered things like childbirth, and I think there was things about like fetishes and stuff. And then they also did one on the coronavirus, which very, very topical right now and very, very interesting watch. And then they also have just a main overall series where they cover lots of different things. So there was one about meat and the future for meat. I watched one about diamonds. I watched one about billionaires, loads and loads of different things, like pretty much anything you could imagine they will have done a documentary of, and they're only about 20 to 30 minutes long, so this is really great if you're just kind of sitting, have nothing to do, and you want something to throw on that you're not going to have to be glued to the screen to watch, but it is going to teach you some new things. Oh, I think this video is going to be so long. I'm nearly there, nearly there. There are actually a few hidden gems that are kind of more reality based on Netflix that I have never ever heard anyone speaking about. The first program I'm going to talk about is Instant Hotel. This basically is like Four in a Bed almost, but in Australia and with instant hotels. And what I love about this is you see loads of like Australian landscape, and it's really, really nice. I watched this in January, so it was quite nice to see Australia in the sun. It's a competition with about like 4 or 5 groups. They go around, each person's instant hotel has to rate it, they do activities, and then at the end someone wins. There's a semi-final, then goes to a final, and their hotels are also judged by experts in the hotel field. The last 2 programs are actually cooking programs. So the first one is £1 Million Menu. This, I believe, was originally started on BBC. It's got Fred from First Dates in it, and I quite like cooking shows, and this is a really, really good one. So essentially it's where people with restaurant ideas pitch to a panel of like experts and investors, and then 2 of them get chosen to start up their restaurant as a pop-up restaurant in Manchester for a couple of nights, and to see how successful it is. And then the people who maybe want to invest will go along to these opening nights and judge it, and then in the end you see if they did get an investment. I really, really like this because it gives you a chance to look at all these new cuisines, and there are some business ideas that you find and you can actually then go and get food from them. There was one person on it who, I believe it might have been called the Cheese Wheel, and they had a stall at Camden Market, and when I was in London in January I went to the Cheese Wheel and I felt so cool being like, I've seen this on TV. That's so sad. Anyway, really, really good show. If you like cooking things, I would recommend watching this. Final show, I'm finally at the end. It is the Big Family Cooking Showdown. This is on Netflix. It is literally what it is. Families compete against each other to make their best dishes for a panel of judges, and then they get judged and then go through to the semi-finals, and then at the end there is a winner. And it has famous people from the cooking world on it who judge their cooking, and it has presenters. Kind of gives me Great British Bake Off vibes, but it's with families because there's multiple different kinds of challenges. If you really like cooking, like to see what people make, I would recommend this. I quite often watch it and I'm like, oh my god, that sounds amazing. And again, I never hear anyone talk about this, so if you like cooking things, I would recommend that. Okay, so this will be such a long video, I can already tell, but I feel like I had loads of hidden gems to talk about, and I hope that I've given some people some inspiration of new things to watch, and I really hope that these are actually hidden gems and I've not just thought that they are. And if any of you guys have any suggestions of other hidden gems, I'd love to know, because at the minute I'm trying to find new things to watch on Netflix and I just feel like I have watched everything. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. If you did like it, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!